Snezha stood at the door, the red thread tied tightly around the handle. It was just string, but it felt heavier than metal. Like it carried every word she hadn't said, every fear she hadn't faced. She had lost trust in the people who loved her. And now, she had to earn theirs back. That evening, she sent a message to Stepan. Come if you want. I'll be waiting. No defenses this time. She set the table. Not fancy. Just honest. 2 plates. 1 candle. A small note under his napkin that read, I'm sorry. And I believe you. He arrived just after sunset. No smile. No dessert in hand. Only him, raw, uncertain, wounded. He sat down. Looked at the note. Didn't speak. I doubted you, she said softly. I let ghosts speak louder than your actions. And I almost lost everything. Still, he was quiet. So she kept talking. Vika told me the truth. About her dreams. About you helping her. He met her eyes. You didn't want to hear it. From either of us. I know, she whispered. And I want to change that. A pause. Then, finally, he exhaled. It was the kind of breath that lets go of armor. I'm still angry, he admitted. But I'm also tired of fighting. Then don't fight, she said. Come home. This isn't my home. Not yet, she smiled. But it can be. They talked until the candle burned low. About plans. Mistakes. Boundaries. Respect. And then, he kissed her. Not with passion but with promise. 2 weeks passed. Vika enrolled in a beginner's interior design course. She was glowing. Lighter. Like someone who'd finally been allowed to exhale. Snezha helped her decorate a corner of the living room for sketching and samples. She didn't understand all of it, the fabrics, the colors, but she understood joy. And her daughter finally had it. Yevon tried to visit once more. This time, Snezha met him at the door. You don't live here, she said calmly. I just wanted. I know what you want. But I'm done giving it. I'll take the apartment. Try. She shut the door. The sound echoed like thunder. And this time, he didn't come back. One night, as autumn crept into the air, Snezha sat on the balcony. Stepan joined her, bringing 2 mugs of tea. You know, he said, I almost walked away for good. I wouldn't have blamed you. But then I thought, anyone can love someone when it's easy. But what about when it's messy? What about when it's real? And this is real, she said. He smiled. Very. She looked down at the tea. You know, my grandmother used to say yellow flowers mean goodbye. I heard that too. But she also said, not every goodbye is a loss. Sometimes, it's just a door finally closing. He took her hand. Then let's leave that door closed. And open new ones. That weekend, they packed boxes. Not because they had to, but because they wanted to. They were moving into Stepan's small apartment. It wasn't big. The kitchen was older. The bathroom needed repairs. But it was new. Untouched by ghosts. And full of future. Vika helped paint the walls. She chose soft green for the bedroom. It brings peace, she said. Snezha chose white curtains, so the light always feels welcome. And on their first night in the new place, they slept on a mattress on the floor, holding hands, listening to rain tap against the windows. There was no magic. No grand miracle. Just love. Earned, broken, and rebuilt. A month passed. And one morning, as golden leaves blew across the sidewalk, Snezha felt a pull. A quiet voice inside her that said, it's time to say goodbye, properly. She returned to Madame Grace. Not hunched. Not ashamed. But steady. I wanted to thank you, she said. Grace nodded, her hands still busy weaving herbs into string. You found your own truth. With your help. With your courage. Snezha handed her a small wooden box. Inside, pressed beneath glass, was a single yellow flower. You told me to get rid of them. I did. But I kept one. Not as a curse, as a reminder. A symbol, Grace said. That even poison, if understood, can become medicine. Snezha's voice cracked. Do you think I've done enough? Enough to what? To deserve peace. Madame Grace stood and took both her hands. Peace is not earned. It is allowed. Then I allow it. Good, she smiled. Then go. Love him. Support her. And most importantly, forgive yourself. That night, after Stepan fell asleep beside her, Snezha stayed awake for hours, listening to the quiet hum of their new refrigerator, the creak of unfamiliar floorboards, and the whisper of rain tapping against the window. Each sound reminded her that she was no longer trapped in the past, no longer walking on eggshells in a home claimed by someone else's anger. She turned toward him, watching the way his chest rose and fell in steady rhythm. There was no armor on him now, no guarded looks or cautious words. Just a man who had chosen her again and again, even when she'd pushed him away. For the first time in years, she didn't feel like she had to earn love through perfection or apology. She could just be. Still, fear lingered like a shadow in the corners of her heart. Not fear of violence, or poverty, or even Yevon. It was the quieter fear, of failing again. Of becoming the very woman she once promised herself she'd never be. Suspicious, reactive, closed. So she whispered a quiet promise into the night, meant only for herself. I will listen. I will trust. I will choose love, even when it feels unfamiliar. And with that, her eyelids grew heavy. As she finally drifted into sleep, the thread around the door swayed gently in the breeze, as if nodding its approval. She thought the past was over, until it showed up in her mailbox. Threats don't always come with fists or raised voices. Sometimes, they come folded neatly in an envelope, signed not with a name, but with fear. That's how Snezha's story began. A woman in her late 30s. A mother. A caregiver. A peacekeeper. The kind of person who never wished harm on anyone. Yet suddenly, someone wanted to harm her. The letters came without warning. No return addressed. No handwriting she recognized. Just threats. Cold, calculated, terrifying. She didn't know who hated her so much. But she knew one thing. She hadn't done anything to deserve it. Or had she? The fear grew when one letter came with a photo. A picture of her. Taken without her knowing. In her hallway. Holding groceries. Vulnerable. She brought the photo to me. I don't understand, she said. Who would do this to me? I haven't wronged anyone. I looked into her eyes. Wide, brown, flickering like a candle in wind. You've been wronged, yes, I said. But there's more. There's something. Still in your home. A thread from your past that hasn't been cut. She looked confused. I divorced my husband 6 months ago. Haven't looked back. He was controlling. Jealous. But I left. And yet, I said, he still lives in your mind. And sometimes, in your mailbox. She winced. Yes. Her ex, Yevon, had been bitter about the separation. He said if she ever brought another man into his apartment, he'd throw her and their daughter out. And even though the apartment was legally hers, the fear of losing their home kept her quiet. I can't afford to leave, she admitted. My job barely covers the bills. And my daughter's in college. Her voice cracked. That's when I saw it. She wasn't afraid of Yevon. She was afraid of being without control. But there was something else, too. You love someone else, I said. She looked away. Blushed. Yes. His name is Stepan. He's kind. Gentle. Lives in a dorm room now. But he's saving up for a place. And yet, you haven't moved forward, I said. Why? I can't risk losing the apartment. If I leave, Yevon wins. She bit her lip. And now these letters. I thought maybe it was him. But something feels different. I closed my eyes. Held her hand. No, I said after a moment. It's not Yevon. Not this time. It's a woman. Snezha's eyes widened. Who? She has light brown hair. Medium height. And she's furious. Not at you. But at Stepan. A pause. His ex, I said. His former fiancé. Snezha blinked. He never told me he was engaged. Then you need to ask him. But I felt more. Deeper. Older. There's something in your apartment, I added. An object. Small. Ordinary. But it carries a curse. Not in the magical sense, but emotional. It keeps you tied to your past and blocks your future. What is it? I can't see it yet. But if you don't find it, it will tear you and Stepan apart. I sent her away with 2 tasks. A talk to Stepan about his ex, and search her apartment. Deeply. Carefully. When you find it, I said, come back. She returned home shaken. Her mind raced. Was Stepan hiding something? Was her ex still manipulating her life without lifting a finger? Before she could think further, there was a knock. It was Yevon. He didn't call. He never did. I came to check on our daughter, he said. But he looked past her, scanning the apartment. Expecting someone else. He added. You seem nervous. She crossed her arms. You're not welcome here without warning. You're lucky I haven't kicked you out yet. That sentence hit her like ice water. He always said that. Even after the divorce. She wanted to scream, but instead she said, we're fine. You can leave. He stepped further in. Nice flowers, he said, eyeing a small bouquet on the table. Did your Stepan bring those? They're from our daughter. He didn't believe her. But he didn't argue. Instead, he said something that chilled her more than the letters ever had. If I see another man in this apartment, I'll make sure you both end up on the street. She didn't sleep that night. Not because she feared the threat, but because deep down, she feared he meant it. And she hated herself for still caring. Snezha spent most of the next morning trying to act normal. She made coffee, folded laundry, even rearranged the spices in the kitchen drawer. Anything to distract her from the growing unease inside her chest. But no matter how many times she swept the floor or refilled the kettle, the memory of Yevon's threat echoed in her mind like a warning bell. You and your little boyfriend will end up on the street. It wasn't just a threat, it was a promise. And it was one he was fully capable of keeping. She tried calling Stepan again. This time, he answered on the second ring. Sunshine, he greeted. Everything okay? There was comfort in the softness of his voice, but it didn't ease the weight she carried. I need to ask you something, she said. And I need the truth. A pause. Of course. Were you ever engaged? More silence. Longer this time. Yes, he said finally. Her name was Marina. We were together for years. We had a wedding date set. But I met you. It felt like her lungs collapsed. You never told me. I didn't want to scare you. It ended just before we met. I didn't leave her for you. I just realized I couldn't lie to myself anymore. Snezha pressed her palm to her forehead. I've been getting letters. Threats. And I think they're from her. I got one too, he admitted. Months ago. She said I ruined her future. I didn't answer. I figured it would only make things worse. You should have told me. I know, he said. I thought I could handle it myself. They sat in silence on either end of the call. The distance between them felt suddenly wider than ever. I need to find something, she said softly. Something that's still here. In my apartment. It's keeping me from moving forward. What do you mean? Something connected to Yevon. Or Marina. Or both. Something that ties me to them. I think it's cursed. She heard him exhale, but he didn't laugh. Didn't doubt. Just listened. Then find it, he said. And if you need help. I have to do it alone. She hung up and turned her apartment inside out. Boxes. Drawers. Old wedding photos. Scarves. Nothing, until she pulled back a stack of outdated cookbooks on the hallway shelf. A porcelain vase. White. Dusty. Forgotten. She tilted it. Something dry fell out. A bouquet. Yellow roses. Faded. Crumbling. They were from Yevon. A cruel gift after a crueler night. One of many. And she'd kept them. Not for love. But because trauma has a way of disguising itself as nostalgia. She took the bouquet to the sink and crushed it in her fists under warm running water. Petals broke like ash. Stems cracked like brittle memories. Then she smashed the vase. It didn't fix everything. But it felt like breathing for the first time in years. Later that night, she called Stepan again. I found them, she said. The yellow roses. They were still here. In the hallway. You did it, he said. You found your thread. I don't want to be tied to it anymore. Then cut it. He came over that evening. No questions. No tension. Just presence. They cooked dinner together, laughed about how burnt the rice turned out, and shared a quiet evening on the balcony. And for the first time in weeks, no letters came. But the silence didn't last. It was broken the next morning, when Snezha found something on the kitchen counter. A bracelet. Silver. Simple. Not hers. She stared at it, confused, until she realized whose it was. Vika's. And she'd never seen her daughter wear it before. She stepped into Vika's room. The bed was made. The curtains open. But something felt off. She checked the nightstand. Nothing. Then opened the bottom drawer of her desk. Inside was a note from the college. Final warning before academic expulsion. Snezha's mouth went dry. That evening, when Vika came home, she was all smiles. Long day, she said, dropping her bag. Mind if I shower first? We need to talk. Vika froze in the hallway. I found the letter. What letter? From your college. Vika's shoulders slumped. It's not what you think. You're failing. I hate it, she snapped. I hate everything about it. I never wanted to be a nurse. That's your dream, not mine. You never told me. Because you never asked. The words stung more than Snezha expected. Then what do you want? I want to design things. Interiors. Furniture. I want to create beauty, not patch up wounds in a hospital. Snezha felt dizzy. And Stepan knew? Vika nodded. He listened. That's all. He didn't pressure me. He just let me speak. That night, after Vika went to bed, Snezha sat alone in the dark kitchen. She felt like a failure, as a mother, as a partner, as a woman trying to hold everything together. And somewhere deep inside her, a cruel thought whispered. What if they're hiding more? What if your daughter isn't just talking to Stepan about school? She hated that thought. But she couldn't unthink it. She didn't sleep that night. Not because of Yevon or Marina, or the letters. But because the silence in her home had changed. It wasn't peaceful anymore. It was suspicious. Waited. Every creak in the hallway, every pause in Vika's voice. It made Snezha wonder. And that's when it hit her. It wasn't about what was true. It was about what she believed. If she let fear lead her, she'd lose both of them. But if she pretended everything was fine, she'd be lying to herself again. She stood from the couch, walked to her daughter's bedroom door, and listened. There was no sound. No laughter. No betrayal. Just a girl, tired, afraid, and trying to be understood. Maybe they all were. And maybe the curse wasn't the flowers, or the letters, or the X's. Maybe the curse was the doubt she let grow unchecked, like mold in the corners of her mind. The next morning, the sky hung low and gray over the city, the kind of clouds that made everything feel heavier than it was. Snezha stood at her window, watching people move like ants below. Everyone rushing somewhere. Everyone holding a secret. She had one too. She had accused the people she loved most of betrayal. And now, all she could do was wait. Wait. And act. When Vika came out of her room, dressed for class, Snezha didn't stop her. She simply said, "Dinner tonight. Just us." Vika nodded, barely meeting her eyes. The day crawled. She kept checking her phone, waiting for a message from Stepan. But none came. She wrote and erased 10 different apologies. Then stopped. That evening, she cooked. Not just food, comfort. Her daughter's favorite pasta. Garlic bread from scratch. The way her grandmother used to make it. At 6:45, the door opened. Vika stepped in, dropped her bag, and froze. The smell of basil and toasted bread hung in the air. "You made dinner?" "I said I would." They ate in near silence. But this time, there was no tension. Only something raw, like a scab peeled too soon. "I read your sketchbook," Snezha said finally. Vika looked up, startled. "I didn't mean to. I needed to know who you are. And it turns out, I didn't. You do now." "I'm sorry," Snezha said. "For not listening. For assuming your dream was mine." "I'm sorry too," Vika replied. "For lying. I should have told you the truth." They both reached for the breadbasket at the same time and laughed. And just like that, something softened. Snezha stood and walked to the drawer where she kept envelopes and tape. She pulled out the warning letter from college and tore it in half. "Let's start over," she said. "New dreams. New paths." Vika's eyes welled. She stood and hugged her mother tightly, for the first time in months. But one more knot still needed to be untied. After Vika went to her room, Snezha sat at the kitchen table and stared at her phone. She didn't want to write. She didn't want to call. She wanted to show. So she opened the door, stepped out into the hallway, and rode the elevator down, holding nothing but her keys and her heart in her hands. She knocked on Stepan's door. He opened it in a hoodie and socks, looking like he hadn't slept. "Snezha." She didn't wait. "I was wrong. About so many things. About Vika. About the letters. About you." He didn't move. Didn't speak. She went on. "I let fear run the show. I let my past speak louder than our present." Still, he was silent. She took a breath. "I don't want to be right. I want to be real. And if you'll let me, I want to start again." Finally, he nodded. "Just once. Come in." They sat. No food. No drinks. Just two people who had seen each other's shadows, and still stayed. "I missed you," she whispered. "I never left," he replied. And in that room, sparse, small, honest, they began again. Over the next week, things changed. Vika dropped out of nursing school and enrolled in a foundation program for design. She found a mentor, a rhythm, a reason to wake up. Yevon returned once, unannounced. Snezha met him at the door. "I'm here for my daughter. She's not yours to control anymore," she said. "And this apartment, it's mine. Try and take it. I'll see you in court." He stared at her for a long moment, then left. He never came back. A few days later, Snezha visited Madame Grace again. The cottage looked the same, a little crooked, always warm. Grace smiled without turning. "You found it," she said. "The root." "It wasn't the flowers," Snezha replied. "It was the fear I watered them with." "Ah," Grace said. "Even thorns need permission to grow." Snezha sat beside her and pulled something from her bag, a single yellow petal, pressed in glass. You told me to get rid of them. I did. But I kept one. Not as a curse. As a reminder. Good. Grace nodded. Not all poison kills. Some, when understood, becomes medicine. I thought I had to earn peace, Snezha said. Prove I was worthy. Peace isn't a prize, Grace said softly. It's a door. You either open it, or you don't. They sat in silence for a while. The fire crackled. What do I do now? She asked. Live, Grace said. And this time, don't look for ghosts. That evening, Stepan brought home paint swatches. Let's make this place ours, he said. They painted together, laughing when she spilled lavender down his shirt. They didn't argue over curtains. They didn't rush. They just built. Not a palace. Not perfection. But peace. And in the window, tied with red thread, hung a tiny card that read, Only love may enter here. Not all curses shout. Some whispered, but so does healing. And if you listen, truly listen, you'll hear it say, You are safe now.